So this one's on. This can go between the two of us.
Good evening. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the official designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 21st. Please all stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Here.
Ms. Prupus?
Here.
Ms. Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the March 17th, 2020 Township minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Reports. Good evening, fellow TC members and those joining us remotely. Thank you for your attendance. Our resident total with the virus is now 112. This information is constantly evolving, and we will continue to bring you all the numbers as we receive them. We continue to persevere as a township. Essential services are continuing, and I am grateful that we have the infrastructure in place to continue to support our senior citizens and our most vulnerable residents with food deliveries and our well-stocked food pantry. Thank you to Down the Block, MSH Flag, MEND, the Chamber of Commerce, Millburn Short Hills Health Support, the Mask Lady, Millburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad, and our police, fire, DPW, and last but not least, our town hall employees, as well as the countless others who continue to work hard to serve and support our local community and our neighbors. This week is Spirit Week, Virtual Spirit Week.
Okay.
Today is Millburn Blue and White Day. Let's all model our...
Cheers.
Tomorrow, Wednesday, is planting, yard work, or bike riding. Thursday is Township Day, Please share on social media what you love most about Millburn Township. And Friday, Play Day, show us your sidewalk or your family game activity. Hashtag Millburn Strong. Please post on the Township Facebook page. I also want to mention that I've been in constant contact with our county leadership and Congressman Malinowski, who is working hard in Washington for our residents. He believes the House will pass what is called the CARES 2 bill on Thursday, which will bring more financial resources to our local businesses. I also want to remind everyone that the primary has been moved to July 7th. And last but not least, please, please, please fill out your census. This essential data will be used to address infrastructure spending and requisite funding on the federal level. Thank you. My fellow TC members, who would like to begin? Do you have any committee reports or any kind of reports?
No reports, Mayor.
I do.
Great.
So Committeeman Wasserman and I and our downtown visioning subcommittee, we've had 2 meetings on, we first met on Tuesday, April 14th to discuss the RFPs that were coming in on the 16th and to just look at the process that we would be embarking on. And then so the proposals came in on Thursday. We had 6 proposals come in. And today we met to talk about next steps. So our next meeting will be on May 6th, in which we'll be furthering our communications with the applicants, the firms that submitted proposals. Yeah, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, I think what you might assume, which is, we're looking at, long-term vision. We're looking at making sure that we're doing the right things for our retail segment and making sure that our township stays vital in terms of where we are in the state, making sure that we're doing the right things in terms of revisioning and redevelopment.
Right, and I think also just to kind of give a sense of timing, that potentially like interviews will take place in June and that we'll start this process hopefully when social distancing measures have been relaxed. I mean, nobody really knows anything at this point, but so it's not something that we're looking to immediately start, but it is something that we're talking about, perhaps in the fall,
Right.
starting. So we're going to continue on that path and keep reporting back to you.
Great. So May 6th is the next
Is our next meeting.
yardstick.
Yeah.
Any other reports? Richard?
No, Mayor.
Mr. McDonald?
Just a few quick things. I wanted to let the committee know that I had a conversation with the Township Beautification League today, and they plan on forging ahead with some planting of the pots in downtown to make sure that as Committeeman Krupa said, when some stuff starts to relax a little bit, that the downtown has those plants planted and looking beautiful. So we're working with them and obviously assisting wherever we might be able to with the TBL. The senior food program, as the mayor had mentioned, is going very well. We've shifted the operation a little bit here and there, but we are providing meals to anywhere between 12 and 16 seniors every Tuesday and Thursday. So for a total of anywhere between 24 and to 28 meals a week. And so far we've delivered 106 meals or groceries to the seniors, so it's going very well. And the staff in Town Hall is very happy to be able to provide that service to our senior population and vulnerable citizens. Just a reminder to the residents that we do have COVID questions at millburntwp.org. If the residents have specific questions about COVID, things that are going on at the state level or anything that we might be able to assist in answering, we're happy to do that. just an update on some of the projects that have been able to continue to go on. The Short Hills train station roof is about 95% complete, which is fantastic that we were, able to get that done in this trying time. But it was a good time to do it with the less people in and around the area. In that same vein, we were pushing to have Old Short Hills Road, which was contracted last year, built and paved in early May. And certainly we're cognizant that is a hospital route, an ambulance route, so it would be one side of the roadway. But we're looking to get that accomplished while things are quiet. But I will keep the committee updated on that, and that's all I have.
Great. Mr. Humsey?
No reports, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take any questions from the public. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Millburn Town Hall will be closed to the public for this meeting. Directions for live streaming this were through YouTube, and an option to have accommodations made for those who do not have internet access has also been provided. There is an opportunity to comment during the announced public comment period. You must be registered with YouTube in order to comment during the announced public comment period, which is a free service. Please state your name and address so your submitted comments may be properly acknowledged and read. If you have a question, please feel to call Town Hall 973-564-7000. All committee and department contact information is also available on the website, www.twp.millburn.newjersey.us. Okay. Any?
I opened up the portion on the chat. We have about 30 viewers tuning in.
Great.
So we'll just give it a minute or two and just see if anyone chimes in.
Thank you. I will now close the public comment period. We will now proceed with the consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to the items listed on the consent agenda? Those are items 20-097 through 20-103.
Mayor, may I just
Yes,
like to make a point of clarification on one of the resolutions?
please.
Resolution 20-099. This is a resolution to extend the grace period of the second quarter taxes until May 10th. Okay, which in effect makes that due date May 11th. And that is the only aspect that resolution changes is the grace period in which there is. Just want to make that clear.
Great. I hope everybody heard that the tax collection grace period will be extended through May 10th, which is really effectively May 11th. So please be aware that the May 1st taxes have an extended grace period to May 11th. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to the items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 20-097 through 20-103, which are listed on the consent agenda items?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Ms. Paul Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes. Resolution 20-104. Are there any comments from the committee with respect to Resolution 20-104? This is to authorize the TRC Environmental Corporation to continue to perform remediation services to address the contamination on the former Exxon location. That is the Essex and Maine intersection, Block 701, Lot 6, on the tax map. Are there any comments? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 20-104, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Ms. Paul Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now we are at the time of the 2020 budget public hearing consideration for adoption. That is, the 2020 budget is, these resolutions are 20-105 and 20-106. This budget was introduced by the township on their March 17th meeting. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 20-105, which authorizes the township to read the 2020 municipal budget by title?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Ms. Paul Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask Millburn CFO, Jason Gabloff, to make the presentation for the 2020 municipal budget.
Okay, got it. No way. I'll do my best to speak up.
Do you want me to turn this one towards you? Here.
Okay. I don't always project well, so if you can't hear me, just tell me.
Take this one, by all means.
Okay, I don't want to.
Is this easy? Excuse me, is
I
this
think we're
easier?
good.
I can
We should
share.
be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, as we talked about at the budget introduction, the overall amount to be raised by taxes for 2020 is 1.07%. So just over 1%, making the tax rate 0.446. This is a half a penny difference over the prior year, which amounts to a $51 annual increase on the average taxpayer. The main big drivers of the budget really were tied in with pension costs, labor contracts, and a slight decrease in the overall assessed valuations. Those were really the big pieces. It also includes the addition of hiring 4 new police officers. So, as we've all been watching the last few weeks before I get into the rest of the budget presentation, we've been talking about and making sure that the township is prepared for what we're all going through right now with the COVID-19 virus. So we've been spending a lot of our time not just assessing the 2020 budget, but the impacts now going into the future. So part of what I wanted to make sure that everybody understands is, are we prepared financially? The answer is yes. We are definitely prepared financially. Can we also ensure that we can continue to provide services to our residents? Absolutely. without having a crystal ball and knowing how long things are going on, we are positioned well to get through 2020. Everything all depends on how long some of the closures go, but we can definitely continue to operate. Our reserves, without really even having to dip into any of the longer-term reserves, we're at least 6 to 8 months, probably even can get to 10 months before we have to worry about cash flow issues. So that really gets us through this year, and then we can look forward at how some of this will impact next year's. Go ahead, if you want to.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna jump in a little bit on this point as well. I know, Jason's presenting the budget, but, Jason and I have been sort of over the last, 2 weeks, in constant communication about, what are the thought processes going forward about the budget, and about, whether you continue to move forward with this adoption, and things like that. And I think, and I expressed this committee, and I think it's important that the general public also understand that, because we are prepared, because we have that financial positioning, I think it's important that, we realize that 2020, while there are going to be issues the longer that this lasts, and I don't think we need to be blind to that fact that if this sort of gets into the third quarter and things like that, things will become more difficult. However, we also need to understand that decisions made now are going to impact the 2021 budget, and we want to be cognizant of that and cognizant of sort of the impact to taxpayers, certainly this year, when things are very difficult and people are going through, various different situations, but also next year in 2021, when sort of the impacts and the things that we're going through now in 2020 are going to be felt. I think, the idea of that, like Jason said, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know whether this will end, in May or, June or what, but from a financial standpoint, we do understand that much of the impact is going to be in 2021. And what we've done here internally and with the township and the staff is that we've already had a conversation with all of our departments. As we see revenues decrease as a result of closures, recreation, hotel use and occupancy tax, court fees, things like that, we have to adjust on the appropriation side and make sure that we're taking our spending very seriously, understanding where we need to decrease some of that spending, that appropriation, so that we can have less of an impact on the current year budget. But that this is the most prudent and in our eyes fiscally responsible way to proceed forward in adopting the budget at this half-penny increase. Obviously at the township committee's consideration. So just wanted to sort of express that fact, and that Jason and I have been sort of tirelessly working and looking at this and trying to understand all the different moving pieces that are going on. And certainly, even in our own organizations, Jason being a part of the Government Finance Officers Association, and I am a part of the New Jersey Municipal Management Association, and those groups and what they've been discussing and working on, and how it's impacting every municipality throughout the state, and taking all of that into account. So, just wanted to express that.
That was perfect. I can jump ahead 2 pages now. But the point is, we just want everybody to understand, we are constantly monitoring the situation with the department heads. We're probably talking, and I'm here less with the working at home shifts, so we probably talk more now than when I'm down the hall from them, just on all these things. So we are really looking to make sure we do the best we can for the residents right now. So in general, you can go down one slide, Jimmy. I realize you put it
It's
up.
not public.
Oh, okay. Never mind. So essentially, the biggest items are non-discretionary pieces that we don't have a lot of say over: the employee costs, insurance, pension, that are really non-discretionary. We don't get a lot of room. About 14% of our budget is really what we have to work with, and those are for where the department heads will come in with their requests, their projects, some of what we can do within the capital section is really what we have some discretion on, and then the rest of it, the big part of the last little piece, 7%, is our reserve for uncollected taxes, which actually right now is even more important, because that is an item that guarantees the school and counties 100% of their tax revenue, regardless of what our collections are. And the counties are in the very same boat that we're in right now. The schools are obviously closed. They're not getting any other source of revenue right now, so it's important for us to make sure that we continue on the path, and our cash flow will be able to make sure, and that's really what that line item is for, the reserve for uncollected taxes, that we can continue to support the schools in the county. Okay, so where does all of this go? The biggest portion, 48% of our taxes, go to the schools. It's a little over $90 million, almost $91 million. We make up the township portion, 23% of the tax rate, and the county gets just about 29% of your taxes that you would see on your tax bill. On the average home, mentioned it earlier, it's about a $51 annual increase for this year on that half a penny, which works out to about 14 cents per day if you annualize it over the entire year. And again, it depends on where you fall. That's just on the average.
Just sorry to interrupt again, but just so that we're not, I mean, we obviously presented this last time, and we can go through the various iterations of how that half penny increase affects the average taxpayer. And we have some decent slides in there, but I think the important thing to note too about that half penny increase is also that this year we are hiring 4 additional police officers, and that, you know, that half penny increase, and obviously the municipal portion of, and that applies to the municipal portion only, and that municipal portion of the budget pays for what our residents see in the service with, you know, public works and herbaceous waste pickup, or police and fire, and town hall, you know, servicing the public and building permits and things like that. So it encompasses all of these different functions of the local government. And I think that, you know, just sort of, the reason that we point that out is because obviously that's not the resident's total tax bill. There is a school portion, there is a county portion that is added to that, but we just want sort of that understanding that that, you know, that portion is what applies to the local government. So.
Jason, could you just, you said 90 million was, 48% was for schools, the 23% for the municipality. What does that come out to in a dollar figure, approximately?
It is about, so it's about $43 million, a little over $43 million is the township's portion.
Uh-huh.
The county is 54 million, and the schools are 90, almost 91 million.
Okay, great.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So is it always 48.10% for schools? So if our assessments go down and anything changes in our overall, you know, they always have to get $90 million?
No, so it's not always 48%. So that right now is an estimate, because we didn't have the school numbers at that point, so we estimate it. The number from the schools actually comes from the school, so it's based upon their budget. So the school will put together their own annual budget. They could be less, they could be more than that. At the end of the day, we estimated about 2% over last year. So they'll have their own budget and their own other sources of revenues. A lot of their budget is based on their per student costs. So that's just 48% this year. It always ends up right in that ballpark. Most towns, the schools are somewhere around 45 to 52%, and the towns and the counties are usually somewhere between 15 to 25%, depending on the county that you're in.
So let's suppose their budget go up because they haven't had all their rec and things that would bring money in, but the town's ratables might go down with the Short Hills Mall, things happening. So if their budget's gonna be their budget, and we have to.
Well, we have to pay their taxes,
Yeah.
regardless. We don't get a choice, but they get impacted by the rateable growth or decrease the same way that
Oh, okay.
we do. We're all in that part together. Then it's just a matter of how the dollars get divvied up based upon each individual budget.
Okay.
So,
And Jason, from the town's budget, a average taxpayer, their tax bill is gonna go up about $51.
correct.
But in terms of like the county and the state, and if you factor in some of the other, you know, the overall tax bill, a average taxpayer, their taxes are actually gonna go up about $400.
About $450.
Including
school and
state,
county.
county, and
Correct.
everything.
Yeah, school, county, town, it's about $450 based on the budget this year.
Yeah.
And that's estimates on the school and the county. We don't have all of their actual information, and actually right now, it's just a little bit harder we're all talking, but everybody's, you know, focus is in a little bit different area on where those numbers are coming from.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know if you have any more. I think that was pretty much, the rest of the presentation just kind of goes through different mechanics of what that looks like in terms of the individual tax dollars. I think Alex kind of said it best, you know, the cost essentially is the breakdown of, that's perfect, good timing, Jimmy, of the what do I get for my dollar. General government, which is really your town hall staff and things that go on in this building, is about 15 cents on the dollar. Public safety, which is police and fire mainly, makes up about 28 cents on the dollar, and municipal services, really recreation and public works, is about 20 cents on the dollar. So those are really the main pieces and the services that we're providing out to the residents. Okay. And then we just go through, and we always like to kind of see how we're comparing with our neighbors. We took out the names of the towns, so we don't incriminate anybody. So in this particular case, if you just kind of look, this gives kind of a 5-year snapshot of just where we compare with some of the, not just surrounding towns, but other similar towns throughout the state that we tend to be very similar with. On average, based upon where our average, I can't see that, it's too small. Let me go to the sheet. Based on our average tax dollars, or our average values, I should say, we're generally between number 1 or number 2 out of this group of towns in terms of property tax dollars on our average house value, which is important to point out. So based on the services that we're able to provide with having full-time fire and full-time police and a number of other full-time services that some of these towns don't actually have, we are generating a lot of value for our residents from the dollars that they pay.
So, just as a bit of a closing on this presentation part, I think it's just, it's important to understand, you know, certainly, we have challenging times ahead of us. All municipalities do. Millburn is not gonna be,
Special.
necessarily special or immune to that, correct? However, I think it is as a credit to, certainly, the township committee, and the township and the philosophy that we've been able to take over the years, to prepare, and be positioned for something like this. And just sort of wanted to say thank you for that, because, you know, while we are going to have challenging times ahead, and we're going to have tough decisions to make, and we're going to have to go through that, certainly, you know, we're able to operate in a good space right now. One in particular point that I'd like to make, and just is that Jason and I will continue and constantly monitor. We will check in with the finance subcommittee throughout this. Jason's continuing to do financial models, in particular the parking utility, which may be a problematic part of all this, but we are working through that and making sure that we're ready to respond to that, and we will discuss some of those measures and instances both with the finance subcommittee and the parking ad hoc. But again, I just wanna express that, we are prepared and we're here working through it and all of the budget things, and it's gonna continue to change, and the tools that are available to us will continue to change. But you know, you've definitely got a good guy in Jason and looking over all this, and so I just wanted to close with that.
I move that resolution 20-105 be approved.
Wait, I just wanted, don't we have to just take some comments from the public?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Public hearing.
And Kid, I neglected to ask you if you had any reports or anything that you wanted to add earlier.
No reports this time, thank you.
Yes, Cheryl.
And Cheryl, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you if you had any reports earlier. My apologies.
I have none, thank you for asking.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the public for any questions regarding the 2020 municipal budget. We'll just wait a couple of minutes in case anyone from our virtual attendees would like to comment on the budget.
So let's hope when we're opening it for business, all those 30 watching will come in to be our audience.
Yeah.
I will now close the public hearing. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 20-106, which authorizes adoption of the 2020 budget?
I move that resolution 20-106, adopting the 2020 budget be approved. You're up for second time.
I second the motion.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Burstein?
Yes,
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Prupus, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2550-20.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2550-20, amending and supplementing Chapter 7 Traffic, Section 729 Speed Limits of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn. Ordinance revision to establish to reduce the speed limit on Millburn Avenue between Short Hills Avenue and Morris Turnpike from 35 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage, right, as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I move that the public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with the law.
May I have a second?
Second.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Burstein?
yes,
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Alex, we can get some signs?
Yeah, so I think, honestly, the next step is to submit the ordinance that's passed by the Township Committee to the county, and they will take care of the signage.
Nice.
Terrific.
Great. We're saving some money.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2554-20, calendar year 2020. Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. And this is where we, by law, have that statutory budget that we only use in case of an emergency, but we do not foresee using this. We have not used it in the past.
Nope.
Okay, so it's kind of like a insurance policy.
Insurance policy.
Okay, great. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Burstein? Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Burstein, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2555-20.
For consideration, an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2555-20, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition, purchase, or condemnation of an easement interest in a portion of the real property located at 388 Hobart Avenue, known as Block 3, Lot 1. The purpose of this ordinance is to authorize the acquisition of a permanent easement on the corner of Hobart Avenue and Hobart Gap Road in order to enable certain signal and related infrastructure improvements to be made at the intersection and to permit access for maintenance of certain existing roadway improvements. And that is something to think about for months and months to improve the intersection of Hobart and Hobart Gap Road. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
About 30 seconds.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on reading. Be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein? Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Under old business, I'd like to ask Ms. Prupus to talk a little bit more about the 2020 Downtown Area Vision Plan, and then the Special Improvement District discussion.
Great. So just with the downtown vision, so I gave a report on it. I just wanted to open it up for some discussion if there were any more questions, or I just wanted to have I thought it was important to have the conversation as we go along. So, Cheryl, can you hear me?
It's very hard.
Right, I was thinking that.
Here, I think it's
I can
good
move it over.
connection.
Right, okay.
We're discussing the 2020.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of
Yeah.
opening up for questions. I think it's important that we all talk about this as we move along through it. So not only, I gave a report at the top of the meeting, but I just wanted to bring it up to see if anybody who, if the three of you who aren't on the committee have any questions about it that we can talk to.
Okay, so what will these visioning, when you hire this company, they'll be tasked to do exactly what?
So the scope of work was put out in the RFP, which I can get to you so that you can see the full scope. But basically, we are going to be engaging the full community to talk about what we want to see happen in the downtown Millburn, in downtown Millburn.
So including, say, we already had Jesse Molman do a lot of investigation to Taylor Park. We've had the PACS committee look at things from a construction viewpoint. We'll be taking all of those,
So
what we've worked on.
We haven't heard from the park, which I think I can't wait to hear about the park, but that can definitely be implemented in. I don't know if, in terms of the PACS committee, I'm not really sure where that stands or what that component is. So I don't think that that will be discussed in the visioning plan.
So some of the things that we've already talked about, which I think I spoke to Jackie about earlier, are still in play, would not be sidelined perhaps, because this could take a while. By the time the RFP, you hire a
So the RF
consultant
well,
and,
it won't take that long. The RFP is out.
Right.
The plans are submitted. We're gonna choose somebody, have interviews in June. So let's say, without knowing what's going on in the world,
Right.
right? So let's just put that aside for a second. If we could just move along on a path that seems kind of clear with everything going okay, then we would hire somebody potentially, like interview them in June, have them come to the committee, hire them, and then potentially start September.
and you'd go.
And then it's a
yeah.
so in the RFP, it was a
Right.
6-month visioning process.
Right, that's what I was asking, thank
So
you.
it would take 6 months. And then from when they started to the end, and then there would be a final report.
Okay,
So hopefully Taylor Park could, already be moved before that,
right.
you know.
Because we never saw that final report.
No, we had canceled, Jesse coming before the township committee as a result of the social distancing and closure of the public meeting, but, to the public. However, we can continue to consider where that might fall into a future meeting. And certainly if at the very least that can be, shared with the township committee, and then bring Jesse in at some point when it's, a little bit
Right.
more apt, to discuss it.
Right, but yeah, so,
And maybe there were some grants they were speaking about for the park.
Well, we did apply for the grant,
Yeah.
from Essex County for the park. And that included, repairs to the bridges, as well as some other, ancillary items. But the main portion of that was, to fix and, repair as well as aesthetically improve the bridges.
And
But-
I might wanna just add,
Oh, go ahead,
One
Cheryl.
second, Cheryl.
Sorry,
Richard was,
interrupt.
I think, gonna finish to
No.
Diane's point, or?
No, I'm good, you can go.
Okay, Cheryl, go for it.
Okay, so, just because it was hard for me to hear when you made the original report.
Yeah.
The few people, whoever is going to be interviewed in June, what are the credentials? What type of credentials were we looking for?
So, like the firms that came, that submitted.
Are they engineers, are they designers, just like?
They're
an overview of
planners with also,
Okay.
and then they had different
retail consultants.
like
Specialties.
specialties, thank you, that they are bringing on their teams.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
And my understanding, at least initially, is that this 2020 vision plan is going to include a variety of stakeholders, right? So in terms of, yes.
Absolutely, all of this.
So
all of them,
merchants
everybody.
and residents and property
Property
owners,
owners,
yeah.
yeah.
So everyone is going to have,
With a big public engagement piece for
Mm-hmm.
sure to, and I'm not sure exactly what that's gonna look like, none of us do, but, we're taking it step by step, just moving along slowly, step by step.
So it's really just to say you've gotten some things back and you're gonna be interviewing some people in the early summer, spring, early summer.
Exactly.
Okay.
What was the dollar figure on this? Was there one?
So it ranged,
I mean, from the proposals?
yeah,
I mean, the proposals, for the visioning ranged, the proposals range from
50 to
literally
375.
from $50,000 up to almost $300,000.
Wow, that's
So
quite a
there's
range.
huge range,
so that was, yeah,
which
and
is
there's,
interesting.
which was interesting, it was, and it's, yeah.
Yeah.
well, I'm sure there's a wide scale of deliverables associated with that range, right? I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to vet it out when you do your,
And
when the interviews happen.
right, and so just to remind everybody that Paul Phillips sits on that committee, and Joe Mariziti sits on that committee, and so does Alex. So that, and Richard and I. So that's the people having the conversation. So I think we have a good group working on it with really good experience, moving ahead with all this.
And many of the firms have stellar records, working with other towns that have been very successful.
Yeah. So
So
it's
an exciting process.
for sure. Okay, so does anyone, that's complete? Okay, so,
Mayor, sorry to interrupt, there was a comment, a question submitted, but
Yes.
whether to be heard or considered.
can you be clear what the exact vision is you're referring to?
Nancy Sonnet submitted, had asked, are these the five bullets you previously addressed? And can you be clear to what exact vision that is that you're referring to?
Nancy, so back in February, we put out an RFP for a vision plan, a 2020 vision plan, and then we got the submittals for that RFP back on the 16th of April. So I'm not sure what you mean by the 5 bullets.
The PAC's recommendations.
Yeah, this has
Yeah.
nothing to do, so Nancy, this has nothing to do with the PAC's recommendations. And, yeah, it has nothing, and I can,
If you
go,
don't mind,
please,
Yeah.
Alex.
So I think the important thing is that there were several items within the RFP that were meant to be addressed by the visioning plan. Those included broad-based categories such as traffic and mobility, aesthetics, wayfinding signage, zoning issues, or land use issues. As
Affordable
well
housing,
as, affordable
yes.
housing, as
Right.
well as retail
Circulation.
retention and recruitment. So it was meant, and the downtown area included, not only the B4 district, but several properties in the periphery that were important and contiguous to the B4 district. So those are the items that are being addressed by the visioning plan.
Right.
And I would add that Mazer, our traffic engineer, is part of the process also, that they'll be working with whoever we go with.
Right, that was part of the
And
RFP.
that's germane to, I guess, Nancy's question also. Yeah.
So, in keeping with talk about the downtown, the special improvement district, which I know we've all kind of talked about this and brought it up and talked about the need for it, and I think that with what's happening now with COVID and how all the businesses are being affected, it's really shining a light on the space that we don't have filled, and kind of looking at, what's happening in Summit and Westfield and what their organizations are able to do to help their business communities, and we don't really have that mechanism. So I think it's, we've all kind of had conversations about it, and I asked Alex to lay out for us different options about how we can move forward in creating some kind of group to be the
Mechanism.
right of the ordinance that we still have on our books. So Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us the different options and
Sure.
about how we can move forward with this.
Stand to address this and make it easy for me. So, really, what the township had previously was a district management corporation that was somewhat autonomous in its governing body and board and setup and structure. And so, one of the things that I think, the committee had tasked at one time, and then sort of all this hit and, kind of reinvigorated this conversation with Committeewoman Prupus, and certainly, going through this and not having an organization that is focused on the needs. That then sort of translates into an organization or a committee that oversees this downtown district corporation that is established also through the ordinance, and can then have an executive director or whatever that might be. And there's certainly a lot of questions that probably, are still go into this and need to be answered, but you have two very good models and two successful models in Cranford and Westfield that work pretty well. Now, in Westfield, the District Management Corporation is a little bit more separate, but there's still a board that is chosen by the governing body. And it's a different form of government in Westfield, local government, but the mayor sits on as an ex officio, the administrator sits on as an ex officio, but generally it's an 11-person board that is selected by those that are interested in volunteering for that board. The makeup is certainly whatever the township committee decides that they want the makeup to be, but in those towns, it's, whatever they decided they thought best. In Cranford, it's a little bit different that the individual who runs the downtown corporation is actually an employee of the township, works under a department in the township. However, their salary is paid half by the SID tax and then half by the municipality. But the budget is generated through a SID tax. That's also same with Westfield as well. But there's a little bit more of that individual in Cranford falling under the umbrella of the township. And so there's very good points of both of these organizations. I think, certainly they've had success. Cranford's SID has been around since 1985, which makes it 7 years older than ours was. I think that these are not bad organizations to model after or look at as you're going through the process of establishing something here new in Millburn. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I have talked to Gabe Baylor down in Cranford. I actually had a conversation with him today. I've reviewed the ordinances. I've asked the township attorney to just take a quick peek at them as well. So Kip might be able to weigh in on anything or any questions that the committee may have. But certainly that's where we're at right now.
And that our previous DMDA had a very finite jurisdiction, if you will, several blocks.
Correct.
I think the vision, if I'm not mistaken, is really to include our various business districts, if you will. So what we refer to as Upper Millburn Avenue, or the Short Hills train station, or so that it's not just going to be confined exclusively to this radius in downtown Millburn.
Yeah, and that might even come down to sort of how you define, the types of merchants that you want to be sort of overseen by this. Whether it's must have a window or whatever, that they're a first floor retailer in whatever district that lies in. Whether it's the B3 on Upper Millburn Avenue or the B2 on down on Millburn Avenue towards Wyoming or whatever. So yeah, certainly. And one other sort of thing to note was, and I know sort of this will go sort of to the philosophy of how the committee wishes to form this, but the interesting thing about Cranford was that the individual, and I know I've had conversations over the years on this, and I know that it's desirous, but they do act as sort of this business advocate and being able to work with the township departments to go through planning board process, sit on a TRC or anything like that. So, and certainly, a lot of it is about finding the right person to fill those types of roles.
Right.
So Maplewood has 3 different sections, right? Do you know if their percentage of their SID tax is does it vary depending if they're in Maplewood Village versus Springfield Avenue? Because if we include different zones that we never had before, have to, see, would they be charged the same kind of percentage?
Well, I think what's possible there, Committeewoman Eglo, is that one, certainly the larger number of properties that you have it spread over, but the way that the township's SID ordinance was calculated was really about the percentage of your building or your property that was retail based.
Not location.
Not location, correct.
So ideally, we would restart the SID tax in order to fund this.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah, so we would, and potentially we'd have a similar budget than what we had before. In other words,
Well, I mean, and I don't mean to sort of be too presumptuous or
Sure.
appropriate, but I think the idea would be that first and foremost, you decide that you want to move forward with this and you establish a board. Then that board, sort of then takes on the job of hiring an executive director. That executive director then guides the board through the process of what sort of budget they might need, because the previous budget, which was around $206,000
Yeah.
in 2018, that might be enough. It also might not be enough for if you're expanding that footprint to the B3 or the Short Hills building.
right,
And an option is also to have some of it funded by the township.
Mhm.
So not just the SID ordinance, but, because a lot of other towns do it where, I mean, both of those get a component from the township as well.
Correct.
Into it.
Correct.
right,
Right.
right.
And then if the town's paying a portion of the executive director's salary, the town has more bite into what's going on and a little more oversight, and we can't have what happened in the past. And I'm talking the past of all, many
Right.
years.
Right. And I think that's the sort of the in looking at all the different, the different models and things like that, you have the ability where the committee choosing the board also helps, where you're getting people that are interested, you're vetting them, you're interviewing them, talking to them.
They're stakeholders,
Yeah,
yes.
they're stakeholders. But also, you're right, I mean, certainly if the township is involved in the payment and it's not solely relying on the tax for that executive director, there's a little bit more there. And plus, any degree of working closer with township staff is always helpful too. There's accountability there, there's the ability to check in on things and check, so.
And potentially, we would have one or two TC members sitting on their board to make sure that we have some oversight. Yeah.
In those two models, there is one voting member from the township committee and one ex officio member.
Right. Yeah, I think my concern, from what, from our recent history is I personally want to just make sure that we have oversight, that money is targeted, and we get our share, we get our value for what we're spending and what our, what those taxes are meant for, so.
So what comes first, the resolution or the board? What's the order of things if we decide to go with this?
I think a resolution.
The ordinance.
The ordinance goes first,
Yeah.
so Kit has to draw up an ordinance.
Right.
So it's still a process, it doesn't just happen in 1 minute.
Sure, yeah.
Kit, do you have anything you want to add with respect to this potential ordinance?
Yes, we've been taking a look at this, and I think what Alex has come up with here would represent a substantial improvement over what you have in the current ordinance, which is, as it has been pointed out, is still on the book. Municipal control being one thing, you naming the members of the board, having representation, voting representation, we would, I think, want to make sure that was the case. And then having additional controls over what the nonprofit corporation could do or could not do, and requiring township approval of certain actions to be taken by them. Yes, there's a lot to be done, but it looks to me like
There went the phone.
Oh, can I listen to his last sentence?
There went the phone,
Battery.
battery. So then, but basically, we as a committee can task Kit
Right,
to
right.
start on the ordinance,
To start with the ordinance,
right? I mean, are we all in agreement for that?
Yeah, can we get, is Cheryl and Kit still there?
Just dial back to the number there, that phone.
Yes, I would,
Here, I'll get
I
you.
would just, yeah, I would just-
Okay,
Or
we'll
just-
wait.
or-
Yeah,
Yes,
it's just-
yeah.
it's just a-
Or maybe
we're
to
just
give
gonna-
us couple
But-
options of how it could be.
You get Kit.
I can't read any of that.
oh,
Like, years ago I could.
Yes, Judy's taking care of Kit. I got you.
Just get Kit, right?
Hold on one second. Here's Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl. Cheryl? Yeah. Okay.
Bring it back.
Cheryl, we're just waiting for Kit. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Oh, wait, let's wait for Kit.
Hello? Kit?
We-
Sorry,
He doesn't
we-
know we lost him.
Been talking the whole time.
Oh, that was, oh, he's kidding.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Tell them to reboot about 5 minutes.
That question's still pending to me?
Yes. So just,
Okay,
you,
I just want-
you,
I don't know what you heard, but I think we'll be working closely with Alex and, of course, Finance, and the ordinances that he has located, and comparing it to your current ordinance, have much better controls by the township governing body, and will include voting membership on the district management corporation, and also would put limits on the kinds of things that the district management corporation could do or not do, depending upon getting first approval from the township committee. So, looking forward to working on this. Thanks.
Great.
so do you think it's possible to have some kind of, just in terms of deliverables, we have the May 5th meeting and then we have the May
I hear you.
19th, right?
Well, I would say, well, if you are all in agreement for us to move forward with that, what's the saying? But anyway, I would shoot for May 19th. I think that is an absolute.
Okay.
If we are able to produce it quicker.
Great.
we'll
Okay.
certainly do that.
Cheryl, are you good with all this? Cheryl?
Sure.
Okay.
You heard all that about May 19th?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And can I add one other thing? I spoke to Alex about this, and I thought, when this gets off and running, that I thought that in terms of being focused, that maybe the township could find space, either in town hall or the Barrow Center, so that no excessive money is wasted on, on rents or phones or
Yeah,
God knows
that's a great
what, so we avoid some of the downfalls of what happened before.
Well, if we're paying part of the salary, we could probably find a little space here in town
And-
hall, especially gonna be working with department heads,
And that way we know where to find somebody and what time they're coming to work
and where the records are.
and where the records are, all the records.
So, yeah, and I think obviously that would take some doing here in town hall.
You're a
But
little
we
tight,
can,
yeah.
but we can certainly start working on identifying.
Great.
All right. Great. Good discussion.
Exciting. Very
Yes.
exciting.
Very
No,
So,
okay,
and I don't know if this is old business or new business.
okay.
Tell me
Business?
Let's go to old business. Does any committee member have old business that they'd like to talk about? Diane?
Well, I guess it was brought up last week, and I just want to bring it up again. We did get a letter from a resident about considering postponing the plastic bag ordinance. I spoke to Mayor Jackie today. I know we've worked really, really hard for almost 2 years at least to get this ordinance going. I do know that Trader Joe's, the Monday after Easter, put a sign outside their property saying they will no longer allow people to bring their own bags in during this COVID pandemic, and I understand that. And I'm thinking it's something we just might want to keep our eye on, what's going on when the stores are allowed to reopen, because I think if we have this ordinance go into effect as we've planned on June 12th, if this pandemic is still going on and stores are going to not want people bringing in their bags, to then have Trader Joe's, King's, ShopRite start initiating the bag fee when you don't have an alternative to bring your bag in, it just might be something to keep open on the table to see what's going on down the line. And as you said, and like I did go to Whole Foods last week, and I did just put my stuff back in the cart and bag it in my trunk, but I didn't have a lot of things. I didn't have like tons of cans and pasta. I don't know how readily people will do that at ShopRite and King's. So I just want to kind of keep it on the table as a option if we have to postpone it, to think about it. And that was it. And anybody want to?
Well, I was in King's over the weekend, and King's is a little different. King's allowed us to bring our you know, reusable bags in, but they wouldn't pack it, like, it was up to the residents to pack their own bag, but they did allow that in, so I think it varies a little bit. And, you know, I mean, I think if there's a will, there's a way to do it. I would certainly hate to not institute it unless we really had to. I'm not saying, you know, I mean, we can monitor it, we still have time, we still have a couple meetings before it goes into effect, so we do have time to adjust it if we had to at the last minute.
Right, it's just that I'm thinking if we can't enforce it, it's counterproductive to have it on the books if we're not gonna be enforcing it. But I'd say, let's wait and see what happens. Things could be open by June 12th. Pray. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, I'm glad they're gonna be planting. A resident had gotten in touch with me about the town garden. Everyone has plots, I think that's Rector Street or Spring Street? Church Street. But those are people's personal gardens. And she said, wouldn't it be nice if we could have gardens for maybe the senior citizens and the food pantry? And I know some of the schools, South Mountain for one, has plots where the kids usually do their planting. And so she reached out to Scott, I don't know his last name, the principal of South Mountain, to find out, Wolf, if the kids are not gonna be using those garden plots, and what other schools have them, if maybe there would be community members who would be interested in doing plantings that could go to the food bank, because they used to bring their overflow, I think she said to Hillside, New Jersey's food bank. So it's something that when Scott gets back to her, it's, Julia Rubenstein, she'll get back to us. I'll let you know if this is something the schools would consider, if there'd be enough volunteers interested in doing that. The other thing was something that I really love, and I always hope that we could do those utility box wrappings that they have in Somerset County. And I brought it up with Jackie, and she had a great idea to maybe push it out to the AP art teacher, but we'd have to find out from Jessie what the dimensions are, what would have to be the art project. I mean, there could be kids who already have a perfect art project that could be a beautiful box, and I know the paper mill was interested, and since they're part of the town, it wouldn't be like, you know, a conflict of advertising. So I just think that with everything being kind of so sad and empty, if we could get those utility boxes wrapped. Do you know how many there are in town?
There's a lot, but I think, I mean, obviously at every traffic signal, there's a utility box, but I think
Right.
where you generally have seen them, I mean, look, you have ones that look nicer than others. I think, you know, if you're talking about Wyoming or, you know, the Lackawanna one on Essex, you know, those are less, attractive than the new ones that we're putting, certainly that are, but again, they're in the central location, so. But yeah, there's probably 6 or 7 in the downtown.
Right, and the one by the middle school bridge, that would be the paper mills, in essence, if it goes that route. Anyway, so I think that would just be something we could look forward to doing.
Makes sense. We had discussed this to maybe engage the art AP. They're doing that Millburn, I mentioned it in my call earlier in the, yesterday, this coloring book as well. So, and that's in AP art, and I reached out to the AP art instructor, so stay tuned. That would be something that would continue to beautify our streets.
So if it makes sense, you could start with one and see what it's like.
Yeah, so all we would need is the dimensions, I guess, and then kind of how to execute the project.
Would we have to get approval from whoever box it is?
Depends what box you, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either gonna be us or the county, so.
Okay, but it's not from like JCP&L or whoever, okay. Go ahead, I'm done.
I have an adaptive lighting question, like, can
Yeah.
we get an update on what's going on with that?
Yeah, so the only update that I have is that sort of relatively toward the beginning of this whole situation, I had a conversation with Mazer and Maurice, and they are working towards you know, getting together the information that they need. However, the adaptive lighting is going to stop at being able to take counts and understand that. I also know that the county is aware of what we're doing. I actually I have to send them an email giving them a little bit more explanation, which I'm happy to do. But I have not received any sort of official update, but I can circle back to Maurice.
So they need counts
They need traffic counts to do it.
to figure out how to do, okay, so we're on hold.
We will be for but I think you get to a certain, just like most everything right now, you're gonna get to a certain point.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna have to pause, just like we're still processing building permits, but we're not issuing, you know,
Right.
stuff like that, so, you know, that's gonna be the same case for a lot of things.
Okay.
Oh, I guess I have just a couple of things I could discuss if you have nothing else.
Good.
Going back to those PACS 5 points, so, I know we got a report from Mazer that said that he was in, a couple of things, moving the stop sign in front of Town Hall Plaza, in front of Town Hall on Millburn Avenue, moving the bollards back, that would make the raised parking a little more user-friendly. And we didn't get a report on the Town Hall parking lot in the back. So I'm wondering if there's interest in talking about those things as well. And how could we do that? Like, I know you said we can start going out for bids again. So like, what could we do if we wanted to do something legally?
Well, I think legally, we received guidance from DCA that you can now go through, they set up new bidding procedures, through that. So there is a way, for instance, the township committee just, at the last meeting had authorized us to go out to bid if we were able to get bids together for the Short Hills Garden Flume. So now, we did that not knowing that there would be a process.
Right.
Now there is a process. That's from a legal standpoint.
Okay.
As far as what you want to do, that is up to the township committee.
I don't feel like having that conversation tonight.
Because, would you be interested in talking about, everyone has a big complaint about the stop sign, if that's something that could be done?
No, because our latest conversation with Mazer was that we were potentially, like, the possibility of moving the entrance exit in Town Hall. Like, moving so that you wouldn't be turning on, that it wasn't
Turning
the
into-
stoplight that was it's not the crosswalk that's the problem,
Right.
it's the entrance exit. And I feel like at this point, there's no need to have any conversation around any of this, because I wouldn't move forward on any of it right now.
I agree with Tara at the moment. I wouldn't have a
Right,
conversation now about it.
it's just not, right, the time, thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, we should monitor and not discuss it tonight.
And when will we know about this adaptive lighting? That'll be whenever the
Whenever
camera.
traffic is back.
Whenever traffic,
Yeah.
But the adaptive lighting, just to make clear, if we can do that, that will speed up traffic, it will be more intuitive, it will move traffic a lot faster, or somewhat faster.
Potentially, I think that's what you're trying to get to, is an understanding of what impact that would have on the traffic.
I don't know that speed up is the right word.
Will make more efficient,
Would-
Increase flow.
increase flow, right,
Right,
yeah.
It should be noted that, again, there are a lot of things that were discussed by the committee and, but that the flood modeling of the downtown is progressing forward as well.
Oh, yes, that was another, right.
Right.
Okay.
And no one's interested in talking about what our engineer at PAX had talked about, the town hall parking lot, if that was something that anyone was interested. It was just one of the other recommendations. Is it worth having Maurice look at it and get his figures? Do we want to have an engineer look at that to see if it's a good plan, a doable plan, or do we just want to do nothing?
I think when Maurice is here, we could have him, I think that would be prudent, just to have him look at that space to see what makes sense to maximize, because the plan from PAX was not a official engineering plan. It was a back of the, it was more than a back of the envelope, forgive me, Rich Keller. But it wasn't vetted thoroughly from an engineering standpoint. So that would be something, when Maurice is here, just to ask him to take a look at that, I believe, if there's consensus.
is he due to be here, or it's something Alex would have to task him to do, if we want that to be looked at?
I do not want that to be looked at right now. I think we should just table all of it. I think we're gonna be moving into a vision plan for the downtown. That could potentially be talked about in there, but I don't think now is the time to be talking about it.
And there are some other issues that will impact, those parking spaces or potential parking spaces, which is, I think, what happens with Wells Fargo.
No, this would actually, if Wells Fargo gets constructed, this would actually be a huge benefit, because it would prevent cars from having to go down to the firehouse. They would be able to make what Town Hall Plaza, is that what we called it? Town Hall Plaza was actually engineered to do, be able to make that left and not go all the way around to Douglas Street.
Right.
So it would have a huge benefit if there was construction going on.
But we don't have clarity on timing or that yet.
Listen, I'm just saying, if we want to start anything, if we can,
Yeah.
I'm putting it out there that I'm not the one who's trying to just like put everything on a halt, and it's discussions we could be having, because we
But
could go.
there's so much unknown. I don't think we can be
You're right.
having them, and I don't think anyone's trying to put
I
it
think that,
on
I
hold.
think that you want not to be doing things piecemeal at this point. If you're doing a visioning plan, if it's going to encompass that part of the downtown, then you should do a visioning plan, including that, and then make your decisions going forward from that.
Well, then I guess it's good nothing else had been planned for them. It all worked out well.
Kit, do you have anything else you want to add?
Nothing now.
May I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, is there any other business, new business, old business that needs to be addressed? May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night, all.
Bye, Cheryl.
Oh, you want to do that? Okay.
Good night.